All right, we're live. We're live on IG. We're live on YouTube right now. Or sorry, YouTube. I need to use this microphone, so I'm speaking into this mic. How's everyone doing? It's been a little bit since I did my last live. I did it over the SEB Silicon Valley Bank as well as the Signature Bank crashes. That was more of like a finance economics live. This one is going to be more of lifestyle, dating, and specifically for my dudes out there, just because this world of modern dating that we live in right now, it's crazy. And anyone who's, I'd say, 16, 17 to your 30s and anywhere in between, you're dealing with this right now. And yeah, it's crazy. But not only just dating, but building your personal brand, how to use social media. It's exactly what the title says. So we're gonna go hop into it. And I'm trying to think I guess the reasoning why I wanted to do this. I haven't released it yet, but a future men's value tip is going to talk about. I'll talk about it tonight on how to use social media. But the content you consume in social media is very important. And I'll go on. I guess to start saying social media, the internet, it's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. So for those of you who are totally anti that kind of stuff, it's kind of a use it or lose it type of a situation. I think of it like this. Make sure the mic's still on. Think about if you were to apply to a job nowadays without a LinkedIn, or even before that. It's not, let's say, like LinkedIn optional, even though it goes along the same lines of social media. If you don't have it, then it's just a detriment to yourself. But think about going into a job interview or even applying for a job and you don't even have a resume. Like, don't have a resume. You're just like, yeah, here are my talk about my past jobs, my past experiences, and this is the type of person I am. But the resume is kind of the entry point. That's how you get in to a job interview. It's how you get the first step. They look through your resume, see what you're about, see your past experiences, see maybe some of your strengths and weaknesses from your past experiences, and then they decide to move on with you for potentially an in-person interview, phone call, whatever. You pass the first initial resume screening and you go forth and kind of get to the next step of potentially getting a job. Now that's exactly what social media is starting to be, and I think many people think of this, by the way. And these are just not my thoughts; these are my thoughts of many people in not only the I wouldn't say just the social media space, but just the technology space in general. That's just kind of how we're moving forward as a society. But it's kind of going to be like the bare minimum. If you don't have a social media and you're not using it to the ability that you could use it, then it's a loss for you. And even to the extent it could be negative points for you. So my thoughts on social media, it's just like the internet, good and bad with it. It's a double-edged sword. You can overconsume, consume a lot of bad stuff. I mean, you can see how kids in general are just being changed by TikTok, and I think TikTok personally should be banned just because I'm not a big fan of the Chinese government. And if anyone knows anything about how they do business in China, essentially, if you want to do business in China for many Chinese companies, on the board of directors, there has to be a government official just because they do regulate all business activities and any activities that go on with China and the Chinese people. So I don't like the idea of the Chinese government having access to information and being able to influence not only people in the US, specifically younger people, children in the US. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. And this has nothing to do with like the algorithm. The algorithm is amazing. Like coming from someone who's the typical, I'm sure everyone saw those TikToks of people being like, "Oh, I'd never use TikTok," and start watching it, think it's kind of funny, but you're like, "Yeah, I'd never download it." You download it, spend a couple minutes on it, you think it's funny, start sending it to people. Before you know it, hours go by. Plan on spending 5 minutes on it, and 2 hours go by, and it went by in a flash like that. It's crazy. The algorithm is so good. But besides my point, um, yeah, there's a couple of different ways to use social media. One is to consume social media, and the second way, which is the way I think it should be, is you create content. You produce through social media, and you provide value. And that's kind of what I try to do with all my lives and my shorts and stuff like that on Instagram, and then trying to eventually branch into YouTube like I am right now. But you either consume or you produce. And there's not necessarily anything inherently wrong with consuming, just because, yeah, it keeps you up to date with stuff. It's crazy. Most people don't even read the news or trust news sources anymore, so they get a lot of their information through social media. Whether or not that's a good thing, that's a different discussion for a different day. But social media, everyone checks it every single day. It's the new news. It's how you figure out what's going on with the world around you, with your friends, family, etc. But you either consume or you produce. And like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with consuming. Like, everyone consumes. You need to consume food to survive and to go about your day. And in a sense, you need to consume some sort of information. That way you kind of know the ins and outs of what's happening in real life. But you don't want to overconsume and just spend countless hours, mindless hours. And don't get me wrong, I'm one of those guys. I'm always sending memes to my guys group chat and stuff like that. Super funny ones. It's hilarious. But you should everyone should be producing, I think, as well, and providing value to people. So whether that be through people who are doing like fitness stuff, or people who are doing news channels like Valuetainment, people doing how-to videos, how, for example, cars, stuff about cars, what to look for in cars, how to fix certain things with cars or motorcycles or whatever, or producing. My favorite is, I really like the motivational stuff, just because a lot of people, a lot of content now on social media is very negative, and the more you consume negative stuff, the more it's going to affect how you think and how you feel, and basically you're going to become negative, right? So a lot of the positive content I think is really good, motivational stuff, the stuff that David Goggins puts out, the stuff that Jocko Willink puts out, the stuff that, even stuff that makes you think. Joe Rogan, I think, is really good. Jordan Peterson. I know a lot of people disagree, but my guy Andrew Tate, Top G, he is a im- positive influence, net positive influence for a lot of people, especially young men, to try to make something of their life and to improve their life circumstances and to become the best version of themselves. The roommates, trying to think of a couple of others, Jay Waller, all those guys, Patrick Bet David, Valuetainment, Adam Sosnick, Soscast. I could name a million different people, but they're there to help people improve their lives. And I think that's a net positive, and motivation to help people, especially dudes, build discipline, build good moral character, moral foundation. That way they can impact people around them in their life. So those are the two different ways that you can use social media. And I guess I could technically end the live right here, but I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper into it, just because there's different ways you can provide value, different ways you can produce content, and either help build your image and your brand, or hopefully it's and to impact and help other people to level up in their lives. And you can build, people have built businesses off of it, and it's crazy. something as simple as a social media, just having an account and posting stuff. Um, there's lots of other stuff that people will post that doesn't really provide much value. I mean, in the marketplace, it does provide value since they can make money off of it, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily good value. But yeah, you can do a lot with it, and it covers many different aspects of your life, making money, building a brand, and going along with that, it's beneficial, and I think it's necessary for guys at my age that are dating and stuff like that. We're going into an age where you won't be able to survive and you won't be able to necessarily compete in the dating market if you don't have a good, presentable social media presence. It's just in the example of my resume, of a resume that I said at the very beginning. You can't get a job without a resume. So you're not going to be able to compete dating if you don't have a good social media presence. And a couple of my friends and I, we debate this all the time, and how it's not super important. And granted, right now, it might not be extremely, extremely important, but 10, 15 years down the line, it's going to be very important online presence of some sort. So, um, I normally kind of prepare like some points I want to talk about today. I didn't really do that. So, I guess we'll talk about, since we're on the topic of it, we'll talk about the dating portion of it, why social media is important, and I guess what people can do to up that. Bear in mind, I'm not necessarily expert in that per se. It's something I'm trying to get better at myself. So it's a work in progress. But that's the cool thing about this digital age is literally you don't necessarily have to be an expert in something to learn, or know personally an expert to learn something, learn a new skill, to improve yourself. You can literally Google it and YouTube it. It's crazy. It's awesome. That's why I love YouTube. Me and my friends have not necessarily debates, but we talk about, me and one friend, we talk about how much YouTube we watch every single day, and but a lot of it's just educational. He likes barbecue and smoking meat and cooking meat and stuff like that. He's a big conspiracy guy too, which I think is interesting. So I think it's interesting. I don't really spend a lot of time doing that because it's not necessarily the most productive thing you can do with your time, and lead you down rabbit holes in YouTube. It's very easy to do that. But I consume a lot of educational content, like better ways to invest. 4chan. That's the OG back in the day. 4chan's crazy. If you haven't heard of 4chan, don't look it up. You get some interesting stuff. But those are the deep depths of the internet right there. Way past Reddit. But Reddit's great too. Um, what was I saying? But you can learn a lot of stuff just, oh yeah, I was talking about learning a lot of stuff through YouTube, and whether that be how to diversify an investment portfolio, more about crypto, what it, and I learned a lot of this stuff, most of this stuff through that. If not, I do take formal educational classes for that stuff as well. But like, what is crypto? How do I stake? What is level one, level two, level three blockchains? What are airdrops? How can I participate in certain protocols? What are protocols? What's Compound? What's Curve? What's Uniswap? How can I use them? What are liquidity pools? And I just went off about a bunch of crypto stuff, but all that stuff you can just learn online. It's crazy through YouTube. And if anyone does need a crypto place to go, podcast wise, the Cryptocracy, one of my friends, Josh, and his dad run it. Really good podcast. If you don't know anything about cryptocurrency, watch from episode 1. It's very helpful. I watched it through episode 1. And then also more in depth about crypto, I'd say Dollar Cost Crypto is really good. There's a couple others as well. But if you just search in YouTube, you can peruse through it, see and deem what's good quality or not. But I'd start out with those people. But you can learn a ton through social media and just the internet, YouTube. And I know I talked about social media, but this encompasses like all of that. YouTube, like I said, not a TikTok fan, so exclude TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Not a big Snapchat guy. I think it's pointless. But we'll focus on Instagram. And we're talking about going from education wise, and that's what I try to do with a lot of these lives and a lot of my men's value tips is provide education because I mean a lot of this stuff just comes from experience. And granted, I'm relatively young, so I'd expect, and I learned a lot of this stuff through what older dudes, Rich Cooper, Jay Waller, Top G, to name a few, have kind of like said because just because a lot of those dudes have life experience. But as far as like creating a good looking social media profile for specifically for dating, and this is really important because think of any girl that you meet, that you exchange contact information with, that you ask on a date. What's the first thing they're going to look at? They're going to look you up on social media, whether that be Facebook, Instagram. It's always usually first Instagram, just because I mean, who doesn't use Instagram nowadays? Number one dating app in the world. It's not Tinder, it's not Hinge, it's not Bumble, it's Instagram. And it will continue to be. But that's the first thing they look you up on. You don't have an Instagram, which some girls might say it's like, oh, it's awesome. I found a dude that's not on social media. There's actually a ton of weird guys, and this is just based off of my experience and generalities. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but I don't follow exceptions. I tend to stick with generalities. But a lot of guys that don't have any social media or like an Instagram or something like that, they're usually the one, not super technologically adept, two, probably a little bit on the weird side, just to be totally honest. And then there's people there's dudes that have social medias but don't really use it, which you can kind of get a pass for nowadays, like I said, but next 15, 20 years, I don't think there will be as big of a pass anymore. And I'll talk about it in one of my men's value tips, but that's the first thing they're going to look you up on. And granted, you had an initial physical person face to face interaction with them, and they'll remember you from that. But going forward, especially if you're just talking over text, which is a way to get contact information from a woman, but I would suggest social media just because I mean I do the same thing, and this is kind of just me being lazy, but a lot of people do this as well. If you exchange numbers with a girl, she's probably not going to save you in her phone, and maybe you'll save her, like you'll put your number or something in her phone and stuff, and you'll save your name, but she's not going to remember who you are. You're going to text her like the next couple days and be like, hey, this is Mike from this one thing. It's the guy with the cool hair, with the nice beard. But she's not going to remember who you are. She might remember, oh yeah, that guy, but like not remember too much. Versus if you exchange social medias, then this is only if you have a well put together social media profile. She will look at your profile and be like, oh, it's that guy. And then not only will she remember that first situation, that first interaction that you guys had when you exchanged social medias, but she'll be able to see your very well put together profile and be like, oh, this guy, I knew he was pretty chill and cool when I talked with him, but then she looks at your profile, you're like, wow, this guy is actually pretty awesome. Like he's doing lots of fun stuff. Seems like he has a lot of hobbies. Seems like he's kind of killing life, doing what he wants to do, successful. And that doesn't mean necessarily just be fake and like some of these dudes who are like renting a bunch of like cool cars to show them off and to act like they're rich and stuff like that. But it's to show that you're competent, you are good socially, you have a good social circle, you're well versed in life and social situations, and ideally culturally as well. So you've maybe traveled to a couple other countries, you maybe speak another language. So that way you can show that off, so you're not kind of just like as one-dimensional dude. And then also that you'll just live a captivating life. You're interesting because you can do anything to a girl, she can't bore her. That's like the one thing you can't do. And that just gives a sense of excitement, but you don't want to just throw out your whole life on your social media, because that kind of defeats the purpose of you interacting with people one-on-one, personal interactions. So I've had many a dates where they see my Instagram and social media and stuff, and they think that I'm a certain way, but then I meet them, they're like, "Oh wow, you're like nice, and you're not the." I always tell people, and this is genuinely true. It's like I may look like a bro on the outside, but on the inside, I'm actually pretty nerdy and I like technical stuff, and I like numbers. I'm very logical, and I'd like to think I'm an intellectual. I don't know if I can necessarily call myself an intellectual yet. Once I'm 40, I think I'd be able to call myself an intellectual. All right, we got Lord Taylorfield, my guy from freshman year, across the room. What it do? A couple questions from him and from my guy Jonah. Um, so this is Taylor's question. Do you use mostly just dating apps, or do you go anywhere specific to try to meet girls? So the thing is with dating apps, they're not ideal. They're not the best. Dating apps, honestly, for dudes, kind of suck, just because there's way more dudes than there are girls, chicks on there. So my thought process and my approach when it comes to dating apps is it's just kind of extra. So I wouldn't say that's your main way of meeting girls or trying to meet girls. I would say try to go places in person. Social groups obviously ideal, but I know that those can be exhausted pretty fast, especially if you're a guy like me. Like I don't have necessarily a huge social circle. I don't hang out with a ton of people. I just kind of have my group, and it's pretty small. So I will say having a girl or a chick that's like a connector that knows a lot of people without you having to hang out with a lot of people, that's ideal. So I have a friend that she's very, and this is in general, women are just socially superior than men are. They they know a lot more people. They usually converse and can make friends a lot easier. It's just kind of how they are biologically. But I have this one friend that she knows a ton of people. She's friends with a ton of people, and I will say she has a lot of attractive friends. So she hooks me up from time to time. But I'd say dating apps are just kind of an extra way of meeting people. And I take that approach of meeting people not to necessarily find like a romantic like girlfriend or girl type of a thing. It's to meet people, and then occasionally like things don't work out. Like 99% of online dating like matches, you either don't meet up with them, or you meet with them once and they're like kind of like not what you thought they were going to be, but they have friends, and then you can possibly connect up with one of their friends or something like that. So I just say if you're not on dating apps, you're just kind of like exhausting another more opportunities to meet people. So I'd say definitely use them. I will say the main, yeah, I said this before, but the main way I typically do is through social circles, through going to events, or having, like I said, that one connector friend that knows a lot of people, especially very attractive women, and then you can possibly get hooked up like that. All right, my guy Jonas says, What's your go-to first date? Go-to first date. It varies honestly, girl from girl to girl, but I do like enjoying some nice food, so a nice dessert place or a nice restaurant, and obviously that's not I wouldn't say that's ideal for everyone, but it's usually something pretty chill and I know people don't like doing like dinner or food just because they don't want to treat it like an interview, which I mean that makes sense. But that first date's really there to have a personal or try to find a personal connection with with the woman you're on a date with. That way you can get to know them, they can get to know you type of a thing. You can get to know what they're about. And then I'd say that second date, that's when you do more of an activity based date, whether that be like bowling, pool, you go for a hike, you go skiing, you go do something. So that's the second date. But first date, even first date, like a walk in a park or something, if you have like a good, nice scenery park, or honestly, I used to do this all the time. I don't do this. I haven't done this in a while, just because um, my sister, she's up in Heber right now and not close like she used to be, but they have dogs. Most girls like dogs. If they don't like dogs, then obviously don't do this. But this is always a really good first date. We would take the dogs. We had a husky Australian cattle dog mix, and then an Australian doodle mix, and we would take those two dogs and we go through the canyon and just like go on a walk. That way, it's most girls, like I said, most girls like dogs. It's fun. It's exciting, but then it gives you the opportunity to have that one-on-one personal interaction with them. That way, you can see if you get that, like most women say, that emotional connection. What kinds of questions would you ask when trying to build more of a meaningful, deeper connection on the first date? Yeah, so I actually typically ask kind of unconventional questions. Everyone asks the same stuff. It's like, so like, where do you go to school, or where'd you graduate from? What'd you study? What are you doing for work? And obviously, you ask those questions just because if you don't really know those basic stuff about them, then you can't really progress in further conversations with them. But other than that, I like to throw out just like ballpark answers. Like, if you could pick anywhere in the world where you had to live for the rest of your life, where would it be? Or if you really want to be kind of ballsy, I've done this several times, but it's like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Or this is a good one too. If you could do anything, if you could achieve like your dream life, like what would it look like? That way you can kind of get a feel for what that girl's values are and what she thinks is important, and what if there were if there is a potential relationship in the future with the both of you, then you can kind of see where she's at and compare that with where you want to go type of a thing. Um, he says, I just always hate feeling like I'm doing the yeah, and I feel that. And to an extent, you kind of always have to do that small talk a little bit just because that's just how it is. It's like doing an interview for a job. You always have to do the why do you want to work here? Tell me about yourself. Walk me through your resume. So how'd you find out about this opportunity? Stuff like that. It's just like very nuanced, and it's kind of given that you kind of ask and go through that stuff. So, but I like throwing out just interesting questions that makes her think, and I also like to, like I said, like to think of myself as an intellectual. Can't call myself that yet. Maybe another 20 years or so. But almost ask her like asking very open-ended questions I think is important too, because then I can not necessarily do I think having a woman that's like super super intellectually sound and can have very deep intellectual conversations is a must for me, but I like to test how intellectually capable they are. It's just interesting to kind of see what they're all about. And and the more you go on dates with people, the more you'll be able to pick up, because there's very few people that aren't very similar to each other. There's kind of like archetypes of people, and the more you interact with a lot of different people, you can kind of, I wouldn't say assume and guess exactly what that person is, but people are kind of like, you can group people in types and you can kind of guess like based on their background and how they grew up and how they talk and how they answer a few questions, you can kind of tell like the kind of person they are. All right. But going into my point of exchanging social media profiles, this is really important just because she can see what you're all about. And if you have a really good looking Instagram, is that she thinks you're interesting and she kind of creates this image about you. But then when you actually go on a date and you have one-on-one personal interactions with that person, they're like, oh, I get this a lot. Like, oh, you're actually like not, I envisioned you a little bit different because I guess it might be just be a Utah thing. I think it's kind of a everywhere thing. If a guy's social media looks a certain way, then they kind of automatically like most dudes are the same. Kind of like we think most women are the same, which is generally true. But if you kind of set it up in a way, and then you go on the date, and you're very captivating, you're very intellectual, you're very kind, and you're a gentleman, not a simp. Don't be a simp. Be a gentleman. It'll really put you in their eyes. They'll see you as very different and very unique, and that will just increase their interest in potentially continuing dates with you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And honestly, that's how you can scope out or kind of weed out a lot of chicks is if they can't really have intellectual conversations with you. And like I said, it's not like super important with me. I know for some people it is really important. So that is a way that you can kind of weed some people out. And essentially, because that's what dating is. It's like you just go on a bunch of dates and then you can kind of see who you're compatible with, who you're not, who you're attracted to. Well, honestly, I don't believe in going on a date with someone if you're not attracted to them, but that's another story for another day. True, true. Us guys, we're way different. We see a hot chick, we see an attractive girl. It doesn't matter if she's intellectual or not most of the time, but there's a difference. There's different the girls you would date versus girls you would marry. So just don't mix up the two. I know many people that have mixed up the two, and yeah, didn't end up very well for them. And try to avoid that. You wanna get married once, and that's if marriage is right for you. I think this is going to a whole nother topic. I'm not gonna really. I don't want to hit up on because, like I said, it's another topic for another day. But generally, I think people should get married and have a good life and raise kids, especially in a two-parent household. But for a lot of people, they just don't want to get married, and to each their own. And that is the end of that topic. But I'd say for kind of like making your social media interesting and captivating is I think being genuine, stuff you actually like doing. Like for example, I like golfing. I might not be very good at it yet, but I enjoy going. I try to go often. I like playing basketball. I like lifting weights. I like let's see, I like eating food. So if you look at a lot of the stuff I post, it's very much follows that. It's very genuine. I genuinely enjoy that stuff, so I post about it because it's very interesting to other people and it's very interesting to me, and I like doing it. But don't post stuff that you don't really like doing, but you know other people are really into. For example, if I hate pickleball, why would I post about pickleball? Because then a girl's just gonna see my post about pickleball and be like, "Oh, he really likes pickleball," and then you might play pickleball one day and you absolutely hate yourself just because you don't like pickleball. So don't do that. I'm trying to think of other examples. And then posting stuff just to like necessarily look cool. And obviously, you want to put yourself in a light. Instagram, they always say is like your highlight reel, which I tend to agree. But you want to play to your strengths. So, for example, if you're not necessarily the most attractive looking guy, but you're super jacked, then you're not going to take a bunch of selfies and stuff. And and if you don't have really good style, you're not going to post a lot about like the clothes that you wear. You'll probably post a lot more gym stuff, but you don't want to be one dimensional and just only post gym stuff because I don't think anyone really wants that unless it's a specifically gym page, you know. And and this is also a really good way if you start. And I'm a big proponent of trying new things, finding new hobbies, For example, when I graduate, when I have a little bit more time on my hands, I want to start boxing. And over this past summer, I got my motorcycles license. So I want to potentially buy a bike, start riding a bike. And because that stuff genuinely interests me. And for example, if I start boxing, I end up hating it, don't like it, then I'm going to stop doing it. But if I genuinely like it, then that's something I could potentially post about. Just because you're just building your brand and you can connect with people based off of similar interests, what you'll enjoy doing, and maybe even stuff that you tried. Like there's plenty of girls that say they're really into dancing, and I do very much enjoy dancing. Am I very good at it? No, but I can hold a conversation, be like, "Hey, my freshman year in college, me and my friend, we went salsa dancing, Latin dancing all the time. I sucked at it. All the girls thought I was Hispanic because I'm brown, and they started speaking Spanish to me. And then when I started dancing with them, they wanted to dance with me because they thought I was Hispanic and I was probably good. That's the assumption they make. And I start dancing, and then they get all pissed off because they're like, "You suck at dancing. Why do you suck at dancing?" And I'm like, "It's because I'm not Hispanic." um, I don't go as much anymore, but I still think it's fun. And I've tried like swing dancing. At one point, I literally did try ballet, mainly just because I was told there's very attractive girls there. I went to one or two classes and I stopped after that because it wasn't very fun. But it's something I can converse about and stories I can tell. And that is a big part of it as well, since I mentioned story. And this is anything to do marketing. If you think of social media, it's basically marketing yourself. So you want to tell a story. You want to tell a story of your life, of what you're all about. Because usually, if someone has a good social media page, you can tell what someone's about, what their ambitions are, what they enjoy doing without even talking to that person. You can just see it right there. And that's the whole goal. Okay, and the cool thing with social media and stuff like that is not only to paint yourself in a good light, but you can impact other people as well. And this goes to the whole kind of going aside dating part, but providing value. You either consume content on social media or you produce and provide content and value on social media. And I think everyone should do so. For example, just saw, I didn't even know he was doing this. I saw one of my friends, Christian, uh, you know him, Taylor, um, Christian Pesci. That guy's awesome. I haven't seen him in a while. Hope you're doing good. If you see this, shout out to you and your sports page. I was just scrolling on Reels. I typically scroll if I'm bored, or I typically like to get ideas for my own Reels from there. So I saw that he did like a sports talking page, and I think that was awesome. He really enjoys sports. He talks about, I think, with him and his brothers and maybe a couple of his friends, and they made a page, and I want to say they have a couple thousand followers, which is awesome. Just because something that they love doing, something they like doing, and they're providing value and content and with this sports talk show, which is a lot of these sports talk shows are actually blowing up. And another example is one of my friends, one of his old coworkers. I don't know him personally, but he just has a normal day job. But on the side, for kind of fun, he has this page called Discovery Deadlifts, and this guy loves lifting. Obviously, he loves deadlifting, so he'll literally pack up a bar and weights and plates, like 45, 35s, on in a backpack, and he'll hike to some beautiful aesthetic nature scenery, and he'll set down his deadlifting equipment, film himself, and he'll start deadlifting. I think that's sick. He literally has like 80,000 followers. So you can provide value, and I think everyone should. Like one of my friends, he really likes barbecue. He likes cooking. I'm really encouraging him. Like, dude, you should start if you really like this stuff and potentially want to start a business, which is kind of what I'll segue eventually into. Is you should start on social media, just because not only will you get ideas pumping through your mind and churning through them, but you'll be exposing it to other people as well. And it's a really good place without really pumping any actual money into marketing to see if people actually like your product or not. So you let the marketplace dictate your value. That's why a lot of these gym influencers and a lot of these other people that have niche communities, they do so well is because people like what they post and and produce content wise, and then they could somehow make a business out of it. That's why a lot of these YouTubers are really popular, and it's such a lucrative career for the ones that have lots of followers, just because they have a cult following, they have people that trust them, and they provide a lot of value for people for free, and people receive all that value and they trust that person. For example, my guy Rich, Unplugged Alpha, Entrepreneurs in Cars. He has an entrepreneurship course, which I watched a lot of his content. He provided a lot of value for free, I bear in mind. And he launched this course, and it was more value. So it wasn't like I was just giving him money, but I purchased the course, and it's great value. It's a lifetime purchase, and he keeps adding new content to it. So stuff like that, and you can easily create into a business. He creates this one course, and he introduces a new class every 6 months or so, and he's charging $1,500, $2,000 now. He's upping the price every single time because there's more content to it, and that's just literally passive income for him. So you can provide content and value for something you're passionate and something you really enjoy, and then eventually, if you want to, and not everyone wants to, and that's totally fine, but you can turn it into a business. You can funnel it into some sort of service or coaching or consulting or whatever it is you want to do, and you can turn it into an actual business. And I'm a big proponent of people should do what they want to do and they enjoy doing. And if you like doing it, you should find a way to make money doing it, so that way you don't just work a mindless job for the rest of your life, wait till 65 to retire, and you only have a couple $1,000,000 to retire. Do something you enjoy, and that's what I hope to plan on doing. You know, what that will necessarily look like, I'm not sure yet, but it'll be fun to find out. But it's fun doing, and you can do all this on social media, and it's free. That's the cool thing. Um, okay, so I talked about dating, using social media, providing value, um, publishing content, and I said this in one of my men's value tips, but it's really cool too because you produce a lot of this content, and later down the road, my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids, like, and that's the thing. This is the good and bad thing about the internet too, is this is literally going to be here forever. But for I never really knew my dad's parents at all, and we have like videos and pictures and stuff, but never like real conversations that they've had with people, or even to us grandkids. So that's really cool. What I'm doing right now, literally, it'll live forever. And you can, like I said, you can take that as a good thing or a bad thing. So don't do anything crazy and stupid. But people, my grandkids and my great grandkids, can just be like, "Oh, like Grandpa Mike had this like weird man bun thing. Um, he had pretty good facial hair, and he keeps doing these like gym videos and stuff, and he's pretty jacked. Like he can lift a ton of weight. Think straight, yeah, that's right. But it's really cool because maybe I'll never have the opportunity to talk with them or converse with them, but I can indirectly talk to them, and they can indirectly get to know me just through this content, which I think is priceless, right? Um, let's talk about. I kind of hit most of the points I wanted to hit, but yeah, well, it's true. I am Japanese, so it's in my blood. I don't know if I could have an actual like traditional top knot because those things, they literally like shave like their entire head except for this like little part on top, and then like you never cut like the top of your head. That's why if you ever seen like the last samurai, they like cut their top knots off. It's like a disgrace to them, type of a thing. But social media is a very powerful digital tool that should be used for good and can possibly be used for bad as well. It's just like the internet. You just need to take advantage of it and use it to your advantage. And it's like dating apps as well. It's like if you don't use it, then you're not benefiting from it. And it'll reach a certain point where if you don't really have a social media presence, you don't have an online footprint, then it's basically social proof. So people will it's crazy. It's crazy. But we live in a day and age where people will trust you more the more content you have, the more they can watch of you and the more followers you have. It's ridiculous. Whether or not it should be like that or not, that's just the way the world is. So you can either take advantage of it or you do nothing with it and you fall behind. And then you're going to be this old geezer who doesn't have any women, dies alone, never successful. You're just working your dead end job or whatever. Not saying everyone's going to be like that, but a lot of people live that reality, unfortunately. But if anyone has any questions, leave it in the comments. Shoot me a DM. If you guys also have any other suggestions for lives, I know I just kind of come up with them randomly as current events happen or things pertaining to my like weekly tips or something like that. I'll usually come up with some. But if anyone has any suggestions, whether it be like finances, fitness, faith, dating, relationships, not even just romantic relationships, but relationships with your friends, your family, with your coworkers, with your bosses, how to resolve conflicts. I think that's really important, and I actually might talk about that in a future live. It's like conflict resolution, how to properly interact with people that you might not have the best blood per se, or there might be a conflict between the two of you, or if it involves multiple people, a large group, and you can relieve tension based off of communicating and then appropriate communication based off of certain situations. Yeah, actually, my next one might be emotional intelligence (EQ). So that involves all that stuff: conflict resolution, reading rooms, reading people, and that's not necessarily like changing who you are based off of who you're talking to, but in a way, it kind of is, or it's more like situational awareness type of thing, and that's very important not only in relationships but in business and being a successful and intellectual person without being like a douche and yeah, a prick and stuff like that. So I might talk about that in my next one. But if anyone has any suggestions, just let me know in the comments. Shoot me a DM. Appreciate y'all. It's gonna be recorded on IG. It'll be on YouTube as well. But I'm gonna hopefully catch the end of this UVU game. Hopefully they're up. They're actually doing great, way better than BYU. So shout out Mark Madsen. But peace. Good night.